I'm Robert Cherabonyonyitono, and having another interesting point to talk about. We were discussing that is water theft in the agenda. Now in the extra, we are looking at consumer rights. Are you aware that you have your rights as a consumer? Well, this is what you're going to be discussing, and plans to celebrate the World Consumer Rights Day. Now, what is very interesting is that here in Uganda, many times you buy goods and you get a receipt that has goods once sold are not returnable. Now, you reach home, you have a complaint about the functioning or the good you've gotten. Now, when you go back to the store, to the shop, they ask you, bring your receipt. Now, when they look at it, they'll tell you, no. Read properly. There is a word, goods once sold are not returnable. Yet in other developed economies, you can even use a good for some time and come back and say, well, this thing had a problem here and there. But I'm not the best at communicating this and more. Allow me to introduce my guest today to you, who is the programs director at Uganda Consumer Protection Association, Teresa Nanozi, a lady who is very passionate at creating awareness on your rights as a consumer. You're most welcome to this show.
Thank you very much, Robert.
To begin with, first let's understand what is Uganda Consumer Protection Association all about? What is your mandate? Are you a non-government organization? Is it a government body? These and more.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Robert. Good evening, viewers. My name is Teresa Nanozi, as you've said. I'm the Director of Programs at Uganda Consumers Protection Association. Now, Uganda Consumers Protection Association is a civil society organization. It's a membership organization that is focused on advocating for consumer protection, on all issues of consumer protection. That is what we focus on. We focus on creating awareness among consumers of their rights, but also creating awareness among regulators and policymakers about areas where consumer protection is needed and is important, where consumer rights are being abused. We create that awareness, and we advocate that measures that protect consumers are put in laws and policies so that consumers have instruments that they can use to advocate for themselves, to claim their rights, because their rights are given by international law. Yes.
Now, when you talk about consumer rights protection, help us understand what is entailed in this, who is responsible to protect them, because I believe I'm a consumer. I consume so much, but what are my rights?
Indeed. Now, first, to begin with the issue of consumer protection and what it is is entailed. Now, to go back, the background to this is before the 90s, when large-scale privatization and divestiture from production happened by government, a lot of the production of goods and services was in the hands of government agencies, state-owned enterprises, banking, even things like retail, like there was a large supermarket run by a government. Yes. Production was in the hands of government. So it was expected and assumed that government agencies are going to treat consumers like citizens, and therefore are going to be focused on producing goods which are of good quality, and which are safe and which are affordable for their citizens. And also because the government enterprises were not really driven by a profit motive. So they had little incentive to do the shortcuts that undermine quality and jack up prices for consumers. So that was assumed. But after liberalization and the private sector taking over a lot of the production of goods and services, there now came a new need to protect consumers in the market. To clarify, who is a consumer? You said you're a consumer. Yes, you and me and every living person who goes into the market to purchase goods and services for their own use is a consumer. Now, this excludes those who buy products, who buy goods for further production and for commercial production. So us who buy the goods, so everybody, including that commercial producer, including the people who are in our regulation, are at some point consumers. So now when we come into the private market, where the market is driven, production of goods and services is done by institutions motivated for profit.
It's all about profit maximization.
Yes, it becomes a problem for consumers because now these are actors who are going to undermine quality,
Yes.
Undermine safety, and then jack up prices to maximize their profit. And that's where then the government comes in to now make sure that there are standards and laws, regulations, institutions in place to control the behavior of these producers, to make sure that you and me, when we're going to the market, it does not become a responsibility to ensure that the good we are going to buy is safe, because we don't have the technical capacity or even the time or equipment. For example, you go to buy a loaf of bread, you would need to be able to test it for its quality and its nutritional value. Consumers cannot do that on an individual level. So then it's the responsibility of the regulators in place, UNBS for example, to make sure that any good to get on the market has met certain standards, and a consumer confidently walks into a shop and pays for it and goes home and consumes it knowing it's safe for them and their family. Yes.
Now, you've talked about ensuring the goods are safe for them, for their family. But let's understand now, how do you come in here? For example, you go to a supermarket and tell you this is 1 kg. The loaf of bread weighs this. When you go home, it doesn't make that. Sometimes we take even those that are hazardous to our bodies. And there's so much. We are cheated in terms of scales. You know, when you go to buy meat, when anything that needs, well, there is weight.
You think it's a 4 kilo and it's
sometimes if you don't have
3/4.
This packed sugar, I want to mention brands. Please get it, go back home and see what you have. Sometimes they tell you this is a bottle of water containing 1.5 liters. Go home, use the traditional measurement. We know your mug and mug. For those in the milk sector, you will be shocked. At least you're cheated of certain little amounts of that. So you're not NBS, you're not Uganda National Bureau of Standards. That one would say you have the technical, the expert people and all that, the gadgets. You're not maybe URA, that of course as you tax, maybe there's some working in tandem with the other body. So how do you come in to guarantee quality, to guarantee protection?
I'll give you an example of an activity we did in 2018-2019 in collaboration with an organization called Spina Bifida and Hydrocephalus Association of Uganda. They deal with children who are born with neurotube defects as a result of micronutrient, lack of some essential nutrients in the food we eat for their mothers. So what we did was we went out, we trained our team on what to do. We went out in the market as ordinary buyers and bought goods on the market. We were focusing on 3 goods, wheat flour, maize flour, and cooking oil. Now these 3 goods are required by law to be fortified, meaning that producers are supposed to add vitamin A and iron, because in the production process as they're being produced, they are removed. Those essential nutrients are removed, so the final product does not have them. yet they're essential. So you're eating maize flour, but really there's no nutrition. You're just filling the stomach, but you're getting the nutrition from it. So the law then, the fortification regulations, which are managed by the Ministry of Health, requires the processors, manufacturers, like this Maganjo, to now put back in the industry, once they've finished the processing, to put back in the flour those nutrients by adding iron to wheat flour and maize flour, by adding vitamin A to cooking oil. So we went and bought those goods, took them to the lab at the Makerere Institute of Science, of Food Science and Technology,
yes.
and they tested them. We bought specifically we're targeting the goods which had on them the mark fortified, or a mark indicating fortified with vitamin A or vitamin A with iron. So they tested, and they found that a very large percentage of these goods, which claimed to have these nutrients, actually did not have them. Some of them had some, but not to the required regulatory standard. A big culprit, of course, is maize. And maize has special problems because it's being produced by many, many small millers, which are difficult to regulate. So now for us, you ask how do we come in? As UCPSO, we go out and do that market, you could say market sampling or assessment. And we brought back our result and presented them to the sector under the National Working Group on Food Fortification, where UNBS also sits. And we said, this is what we found. So then the regulators and policy makers take our report and say, okay, this is what they found on the market. Let's find out more and then find ways to regulate or to fix this problem, because now the regulation is there. It's just compliance. And when we went to the industries with our results and showed each of them that we picked these products of yours, you say they are fortified. But actually our results show that these are not or are not up to the standard. And many of the industries actually were surprised, because some of them actually said, you know, we know of the regulation, but we didn't know it was this important. Because then we went with those children who have suffered deformities due to this micronutrient deficiency. And they were surprised and said, now they understood the importance of fortification. Others had more structural problems, how to get fortificant, the costs, the taxes, the equipment. For the small industries, the millers, of course, the cost of just purchasing the equipment, purchasing the fortificant. So then it's up, we go back to the regulators, and now it's their job to find out how to help these industries to fortify.
Well, you've just talked about, I'm more eager to know more of the activities and programs that you're involved in.
Yes, there is a fortification program that we have done, but quite a bit we have also, a bit of our work is actually focused on policy making platforms of government. For example, we are members of the Technical Petroleum Committee of the Ministry of Energy, which advises the minister on things like how to make gas, liquid petroleum gas more available, more affordable, especially for lower income earners, things like the fuel biomarking programs. So quite a bit of our work focuses on that policy level intervention without going to the market to do those on-the-ground assessments. Yes.
Also, I'm interested to understand what is the current status of consumer protection in Uganda, because personally, when I move around, I feel sometimes the consumer is not much protected. Like I said earlier, why would I buy something from you and you're telling me goods once sold are not returnable? Sometimes you look at what people are consuming, say anything. There's always a gap for you to say and to understand that the consumers are not that well protected.
Indeed, like you've said, the consumer protection in Uganda at this moment is deep low. It's very low. It's very low. Because number one, we do not have a consumer protection law. We have no consumer protection law, and therefore we have no consumer protection policy as well. There is some, and therefore no regulator for consumer protection broadly, that this is a regulator whose focus is on consumer protection. Recently, the Competition Act was passed. It has some provisions for consumer protection, but that is not really the consumer protection we're talking about. So there is some consumer protection in sectors at the sector level. For example, the financial sector has the financial consumer protection guidelines. The communication sector has some regulations on consumer protection, electricity, like that, in the sectors. But the problem with these sector level consumer protection measures is that they're not really focused on protecting the individual consumer who has gone into the market and probably been aggrieved or suffered. They are really focused on stabilizing the sectors, making sure, for example, that there are predictable prices, there is quality standards that generally have been set, and there are measures for example, to ensure service levels by the regulator. So they are really to stabilize the sector to grow. But as an individual consumer, for example, if I lost my money in the bank, for example, there are no specific regulations that I can go to and actually get redress. For example, take the example of telecom, where people are losing money all the time. Data, you buy data and it
doesn't show up.
It disappears.
Yes.
There's something people now call gonya, that some of these service providers have a gonya that swallows data as soon as you buy it. So as a consumer, when I lose data, I make my reports, UCCA, it takes the reports, and they're able to say, like, maybe 5% of a certain service providers' customers have lost data, for example. And they can penalize, the law provides for the regulator then to penalize these service providers in terms of money. Now, when those service providers pay the fines that are imposed on them by the regulator, those fines go to the regulator as revenue. But there is no provision that the regulator then actually will come back and identify who are these 5% consumers who lost their data and therefore compensate them. That is not provided for. So the actual entity being compensated is the regulator, not the consumers. So the incentive there to actually make sure that these consumers are protected and the data losses are low is limited, because if this is revenue for the regulator, then it doesn't serve the interests of the consumer. Yes.
Now, a quick one. Recently, we saw Parliament pass the Competition Act 2023. Now, doesn't this somehow in any way address this?
The Competition Act has some provision. The long-term objective, of course, is to ensure that the market the market has fair competition, which means that quality standards are maintained. If me and you are competing fairly, we are going to be competing on making sure that we will have the best product on the market that consumers are going to buy. We're going to make sure that we have the lowest prices on the market, that consumers will favor our product. So that regulation, in that sense, yes, helps consumers, because it ensures that they will have good quality products and at an affordable price. The problem still is that the law hasn't come into effect, so we haven't tested it. But it's unlikely that that law will be able to help a consumer who has suffered loss, for example, from the collusive behavior of cartels. And that a consumer then can go and sue those entities or report to the regulator and get any kind of redress. Still, the fines, which are based on the turnover of these organizations, will go to the regulator.
Oh, very unfortunate. Where are we left? Because if I'm the one having the pain, I'm the one having the loss, and I'm not the one being compensated or getting these fines, then it defeats reason. However, for effective competition, one would say yes. Because if you're selling the same good, for you, your prices are very high, mine are low, then one would go for someone who's selling lower prices, therefore I'm pushed out of business. No wonder it is the Competition Act 2023. But, ladies and gentlemen, why not go for a short break? And when I return, we'll still be discussing more and also letting you know how best can you get in touch with Uganda Consumers Protection Association, and maybe when these things happen, they have a better way of understanding how we can solve them despite absence of clear laws protecting the consumers.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja, Peoples of Eastern Uganda segment. How have they negotiated the colonial border that divided the Luya nation into two countries?
The Vasamia, Babukusu, the Bagwe, the Bamasava, all belonging to the Valuya
of Kenya.
The last man to be identified as a Mugis was Masaba.
He just emerged from the ground like a mushroom.
The confluence and hybridity of the peoples of the Great Lakes region come alive in eastern Uganda.
Of course, the true Baganda, they know that they originated in Mount Elgon region.
Share language with Bagwere.
Premiering on Saturday, the 23rd of March 2024 at the National Theatre from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Have you packed more with Harbour jelly and Harbour foam? Yes, we packed. It will protect your skin from skin rashes. Movit pack. It is a new improved Movit Harbour jelly. So soft and smooth. It is a Movit Harbour jelly.
Tell me, kids, the scent. Any irritations? No more rashes and irritations. Movit Harbour Jelly and Harbour Soap is rich in natural herbs for a smooth and glowing skin.
Movit all day confidence.
Juko.
Yo.
Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. But what you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that.
Okay.
The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that break, and thank you so much for being with us on UBC TV. I'm Robert Chirabonyonyitono, and I have Teresa Nanozi, who happens to be the Director Programs at Uganda Consumer Protection Association, where we know that, of course, the rights of consumers matter. And, of course, in our first half of the show, she rightly put it that we have a lacuna in the law, and also we need to do so much in that direction. Now, 15th March is World Consumer Protection Day. I don't remember us celebrating this. But also let's talk about this day, because if you are looking at creating awareness, these are some of the avenues that we use to let the public know that there is this.
Yes, thank you. Yes, 15th March is World Consumer Rights Day. We had initially planned our celebration activities to actually coincide with that day. But due to the different programs of our partners and stakeholders, and also a lot of other engagements, it was seen as fitting to postpone our own celebrations, because we're also participating in some of the international celebrations. So we postponed our celebrations. They are going to happen next week, but we are yet to finally confirm a final date with our key stakeholders. But definitely we keep watching our stakeholders. We are keeping them engaged, and we're going to communicate the exact date. Now, why is it important to mark this day? Because it is important to keep regulators, reminded that consumers, as an individual consumer out there, we are powerless to engage with regulators. But when we come together as advocates, organizations, and associations, and combining groups, then we have a platform where we can sit down with the regulators and remind them of their responsibility to protect consumers. So that's the importance of actually having this celebration, that we sit down with the regulators and remind them of the risks that consumers face in the market and the need to strengthen the ways in which they are protected by law. Yes.
Now, we know that you work with various partners, because initially you said that this is not something you can do alone. So what are some of these other stakeholders involved in the rights protection of consumers?
First and foremost, our frontline partner is the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. This is the ministry that is mandated to protect consumers. And one of our main requests and petitions to them at this time is to please bring the consumer protection law to Parliament, because that law has been pending now 20 years or more since we've been talking about a draft consumer protection bill. It's still a bill, and we are urging the ministry to bring it to Parliament so that we have strong protections for consumers. So the Ministry of Trade, we work very closely with them. We are engaging them, and they are going to be at our World Consumer Rights Day. We're hoping that the minister will be there at our celebrations. So we can be talking now of Consumer Protection Month. This is the day, since that day has passed. We also have other regulators who are partners. Regulators like Bank of Uganda, which is responsible for financial consumer protection, like UNBS, which is responsible for standards, like UCC, like Civil Aviation Authority, which is responsible for aviation industry. So the different regulators, they are all our partners. And that is why we want them to actually be available and present at that table when we have that dialogue. Yes.
Now, you said this is an organization or an association that one has to be a member. You talked about it's a membership organization.
Yes.
Now, me, a person, a Robert Chirabo, a consumer, how do I, is it organizations, is it individuals, How is it? More clarity on that.
Our membership is open to organizations and individuals. Our members, currently most of our members are actually individuals, people of goodwill who think that this issue is important. UCP was set up in 1993 by 10 individuals who said this is an important issue, so they got together and formed it. So we have continued to grow membership around that concept of enlisting members who are interested in seeing this advance and are willing to volunteer their time and their resources to engage stakeholders, especially regulators, at the policy-making level especially. So we have representation to bodies like UNBS, different platforms and committees responsible for food safety, responsible for things like standards, like is it hair salons, cosmetics, so they have different committees. So then we delegate these individuals to go at their own time and cost to participate and make sure that when these standards are being made, consumer protection is addressed. So the individuals who are interested in volunteering that time just to see that the public good is protected are welcome to be our members.
Okay. Well, time seems to be moving, and yes, we must come to the end of the show. But before we get to that, I just want to have your parting shot and a message to Ugandans out there, a message of hope. Despite the fact that we have a bill that has been there for some time, a message of hope, ideas of how we can hold companies, individuals responsible when our rights are violated.
The hope is that the Ministry of Trade now says that the Consumer Protection Bill is advanced. I think it's at the level of the first Parliamentary Council. So it will soon be in Parliament, and we will have an instrument by which we can enforce our rights. That is hope. And also regulators slowly are engaging, and they are realizing that it is important to protect consumers if they are to fulfill their mandates and if they are to hold service providers accountable for their actions. The key thing for consumers is that we have a responsibility. We don't just have rights, we have a responsibility. Let us be alert consumers. When we go out in the market, let us be informed. Let us not just buy goods on which we have no information without reading the labels. Read goods in a language, labeled in a language you don't understand, and we buy them. Let us not do that, because then, even when our rights are in law, if we continue doing that, even when the law is provided and passed, we will still fail to utilize it, because rights are not given to you. You have to claim them. So let us empower ourselves with information, with alertness, and if we are aggrieved, let us not keep quiet. These service providers who are bad take advantage of the fact that victims will go home and keep quiet, will be disillusioned and lose hope, and which is what most consumers actually do. Studies have shown most consumers in Uganda, they lose money and then they just don't report.
Yes. So
let us, when we are aggrieved, even in this still chaotic environment, let us report. UCC, for example, has a call center. Bank of Uganda has a platform for receiving complaints. ERA, the same. When you go to the website, all of these institutions have measures to receive complaints. The more we complain, the more they will feel our pressure and therefore take measures to protect us.
Well, thank you so much, Teresa Nanozi, who is the Director of Programs at Uganda Consumer Protection Association. And above all, you, my bosses, our viewers, you've been with us from 6:30 till now. Thank you so very much for being part of the show. Let's not keep quiet. Let's blow the trumpet. Don't give up. Go to the concerned regulators of that particular sector when you feel your rights have been violated. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Have a lovely day for God and my country.